Okay, so what we're going to talk about here today is something that I've been developing for quite some time now, and it's still in the research phase. And this is basically a framework that I've developed from the inside out. My team have developed from the inside out by looking at data and by talking to real creators in the real world, which is not exactly something that platforms do the greatest job of. I want to be clear that this is not a video or a lecture that's going to bash platforms entirely. They're not the only ones to blame for this. Some creators have to carry some of this burden too. But what this expressive space framework really does is it's designed to protect the creators, the real creators out there, from being chewed up by platforms and by dynamics that don't have our best interest as creators in mind. So I, I want you to think that we're in a moment right now where creativity is being commodified, right? It's being seen. You see it all the time with like Apple and Spotify, YouTube, all this, and our content is being flattened. It's being destroyed, right? And it's made to fit the mold of what an algorithm can basically package very simply, right? I'm going to argue with this framework that it's not a sustainable way for anyone to survive. It's not good for us as creators, it's not good for culture, and not even for the platforms long term. I mean, you're getting royalties for pennies. I mean, when you're getting, a royalty check for 15 cents or something. So I want to be clear that in this lecture and this conversation is not just a critique. What I'm going to lay out here is what I believe is a blueprint, a way to shift the system from the extractive mindset that we have here today back to a more expressive mindset. So I want to show you in the next slide what I mean. So if you're a content creator today in 2025, right? We need to start with the real truth of this thing, right? You are expected to be three things. You're expected to be consistent, you're expected to be prolific, and you're expected to be palatable to the algorithm, right? So the algorithm has to like you. And you're supposed to have zero control, but you're told that you have all the control in the world, right? Let's just be honest. Algorithms change on a dime. They change constantly. Your reach often gets silenced without even being noticed, right? There's a lot of problems out there in the creative world. And you burn out because you're trying to stay visible. You burn out because you're trying to stay relevant and try to stay monetized, right? And platforms, I think, sell the dream of this to people, the dream of freedom. But what they're doing is they're really handing you some invisible shackles. And a lot of platforms are very, very bad about this. And in a world where we see more and more people, their livelihoods depending on content creation, right? I think this is going to be a problem because you're placing your livelihood in the hands of a system that you really don't understand and that you really can't influence at all. And that's not freedom. That's what I call exploitation, right? So, and as we kind of research this framework and talk to creators, we've seen this more and more. And I think that this is not just inconvenient, okay? It's not just an inconvenient truth. There's a psychological aspect of it, which is what I'm studying now. And all of these things kind of kills the joy of creating. It kills the creativity, right? It kills everything that made you want to create in the first place. And that's the crisis that I think that this framework that I've laid out here is really trying to address more and more. So you might be asking yourself kind of what the alternative to all this is. And that's where this thing that we've been researching and putting together kind of comes into play at this expressive space framework that I keep talking about. Because what I'm saying here is that if you want to create a place for creators to truly thrive, right? then you have to create places that really respect the four basic elements of human need, right? And so one of those that I've identified, let's kind of walk through this here, is that you need to have the psychological autonomy. You need to have the freedom to make you really believe that you have a voice, not just borrow one, right? Not just borrow the platform, right? Number two, I think you need to have this creative flow. And that's when I talk about the creative flow, I'm talking about that's the sweet spot, right? Where work kind of becomes joy and it's not just the output that you're throwing out there into the world. So you have to have that creative flow. And then you also have to have the economic transparency that comes with knowing what you're going to get paid, when you're going to get paid, how you're going to do it. In the world that we live in right now, there's no show and tell when it comes to the money. There's ideas, there's theories. YouTube is perhaps the worst when it comes to this. There's all kinds of theories about how you're going to get paid and why. But really, it's like this all the way throughout the creative landscape. Actors nowadays, movie producers, news producers, photographers, all this different stuff. So there's no economic transparency there. And the last pillar that I think that when we're talking about these four pillars is you need support. And we're not just talking about mechanical support here, right? We're talking about real communities, real connections with access to resources that can help you when the algorithm does finally suppress you, when it silences you, when it quiets you. You take a real mental hit and you need support for that. So you might be asking yourself, if you're a platform, what can you do? Why is this your problem? And I think that what one of the things that you're doing right now, especially if you're these major platforms, is you can stop running your creators into the ground. Stop making them feel like they're just a cog in a wheel, right? And you start with complete transparency, okay? You're selling transparency right now, like you're being honest, but you're not totally telling the truth. You're not totally, look, we know YouTube, Medium, Substack, whatever, Rumble, they're not totally being transparent with us. And these platforms kind of ghost creators. And to Medium's credit, Medium does have Coach Tony, as they call him, right? The CEO of Medium. He's at least somewhat pretty well active on the platform, and he will respond to you if you give a pretty good discussion there, right? If you're willing to, he seems like he's. I haven't spoken to him personally. He's responded, I guess, in kind to a couple of posts I've made, and I really appreciate him doing this because that shows he's open to having a conversation. And I think this conversation starts with that they need to be more transparent. These platforms need to be more transparent and talk to the creators when their content gets ghosted, when it starts to drop, right? Let's see let teach your creators what's happening under the hood about what's going on. Just don't tell them how the engine's running. And then I think too that you have to make the moderation fit the culture. Okay, this can't be a one size fits all kind of solution, right? We have to respect the community values. And the community values are very, very broad these days. And they're getting more and more broad every single day. And then finally, I think that another really important component to this is that platforms need to prioritize the diversity of the content creation world, not just favor one side over the other, because bland content is not good content. It's not solid content. And then when they, think about these upgrades, right? When they bring an upgrade, there's no real systematic help to this thing, right? Okay. These things are repairs. And what they're doing is with these updates and these upgrades, right? Is they're healing a system that's gotten out of sync with the people who power it, the creators. And the creators need to understand that on YouTube and on TikTok and on Medium and on Meta, whatever it is, you're the one holding the key. You're the one holding the cards here. And they're not being transparent with you. It's a slot machine, whether or not you're going to make it or not. There's no transparency to it. So I'm going to end this today with a little call, right? It's not a call to fight, okay? That's not what this is at all. It's a call to build. This is not about toppling the platforms. It's about working with the platforms, right? It's about inviting the platforms to the table to have a conversation with us, the creators, the people who really have the power. It's about co creating habitats and ecosystems, right? Not just digital content factories that are out there flinging around things in the mud. And this framework that I'm building here, and I'd love to have more conversations with this as the research develops with platforms, right? Because we need to have these big platforms in this conversation. And so far, they've been very leery about having these conversations with us. But we need to build the kind of place where expression is not punished, where it's prioritized, right? You do need gatekeepers, but we need habitats where creators can grow and they're not just trying to adapt to every new rule that comes into play out there. The creators are actually helping them write the rules. And we're talking about the professional creators, not just the novice, not just the people that are the very I'm writing for the fun of it, whatever, 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 because let's face it, more and more people are turning to the creative lifestyle to earn a living. And some of them are very good creators, some of them are some of them are just you know, and that's just how it works. But I really do believe that when the expressive space is safe, when it's transparent, when it's logical, and when it's collaborative, creators and platforms really begin to thrive. And creators thrive when culture begins to flourish. And I think that's a win win for everybody involved, for the platforms, for the creators, for the audiences. That's a win win. So whether you're a platform builder, a policy wonk, or a creator who's just trying to stay whole, trying to maintain your identity, this framework that I'm developing is truly about you. And that is what I think makes this something worth standing on. I really believe that. So, anyhow, I want to thank you for hearing me out. This has just been kind of a brief overview of the framework and how it works. I look forward to having a lot more conversations with you and having some discussions about this because this is all really important and it's really vital to the world that we live in today and the creative and expressive world that is going to be out there for many years to come. The world belongs to the creators. It really does. Thank you very much.